Brian, what are the benefits of the Tesla Powerwall 3 for my home or even my business?
Good question. I think it's a lot of things that people are wondering about, like what's the point of a battery and what can it do for me? And some like the basics I would say is resiliency, security, and a little bit of and some savings depending on a couple factors. So in terms of resiliency, we're speaking more about your home um, and kind of your relationship with the grid, for instance. So in a power outage, the battery system is going to be able to pick up your home and you be able to carry on and do what you're normally doing and have your same lifestyle. So a lot of that's, you know, resiliency against being down against the grid. Now, depending on where you live, some folks lose power and are without more often than others. Some folks don't lose it as often, but a lot more people are working from home these days, or they might have essential equipment, be it medical or comfort and things like this, depending on again lifestyle and everyone's family situation. So again, it gives us a lot of resiliency, security, which kind of overlaps a little bit. I would say that again, if you know you lose power, and if there's any essential devices you need in your home, or just having Wi-Fi, being able to work from home, if you more and more folks are electrifying and energizing our home with smart equipment and integrating these pieces into our homes. So if you have security systems, or you have locks and different mechanisms, not to mention heating and things like that. So it gives us some more security in that respect as well. And then in terms of savings, in some cases, the savings can be minimal. If you have a really good net metering program, which is how we get electricity savings with solar, then your savings might just be a few pennies per kilowatt hour that you're able to realize by storing power from your solar panels and then pulling it back on evenings, cloudy days, at night, or obviously an outage is more of a security thing. But and then if you have certain utilities, you have a much lower compensation for your net metering or your energy savings. And there's where you're able to actually get some real savings, where you're able to store those kilowatt hours and then pull them back at the full retail rate. So you're getting more of a 1-to-1 ratio and generating your own net metering program or savings program with your solar system. So I'd say those are the most basic ways that people look at storage with batteries and are interested in learning how they would work for them. But I would say a lot of people now just want your creature comforts, right? So you just want what I want, and I want to be able to continue on, even if I do lose power for an hour or two. It's disruptive to my lifestyle, to my family, or for security, things like that. A lot of folks are, the landscape in our country, kind of through COVID and politically, folks want to be more resilient and in control. And in a battery system, especially Powerwall 3 gives you that.
And maybe we should take a quick, step back briefly and just like kind of talk about battery backup in general with solar systems. I think it's maybe a misconception that people might have before they get solar installed in their house that, yeah, in the event of a power outage, can't I just, run my house off of the power that I'm generating from solar? But it doesn't really work that way.
So, yes, this is something we always want to discuss with customers and make sure they understand. So you can have solar without a battery, and you can have battery without solar. But if you have solar, then in the power outage, the inverter or the electronics that are taking that solar power and making it usable power for our homes needs to see a signal from the grid in order to operate. And that's for safety reasons. So when the power goes out, that signal is not there for the inverter to read, and therefore the inverter shuts down. And that's so that we're not pushing power back onto the grid and injuring the folks that are trying to get our grid back up and running. So that's really the key piece. So if you have solar, doesn't mean that you always have solar. It is grid tied, and therefore it has a relationship with the grid that needs to be up and running. Of course, unless you have an off-grid system, then it works differently. That's meant to be off the grid and not have relationship with the grid. Similarly, the battery system can operate with and without solar. It's just really leveraging it with solar to make your own electricity, store that, and then pull it back, as opposed to relying on the grid. You're buying additional kilowatt hours from what your home needs to energize or charge up the battery, and then acting as a electric generator essentially in the event of a power outage. So that's really just strictly battery backup, where you can have a little more functionality, especially Powerwall 3, and all the Tesla products continue to evolve over time, which not the app, the controls, and the functionality itself, as incentives or utility programs and functionality change, so will the product, which is really, I think, a forward-thinking piece of how Tesla operates and why their product is always at the top of the industry. But that's a kind of the basics, right, of the solar and battery relationship.
So speaking of change, this is the Powerwall 3 from Tesla. What has improved or changed in this version of the Powerwall compared to previous versions?
The biggest thing is it's AC and DC coupled. So what's that mean, right? Their first battery that came out with Powerwall 1 was DC coupled, meaning you had to have a separate solar inverter or just an inverter for the battery to operate. At that time, we couldn't have storage alone. You had to have it with solar. That's changed through policy and so on and so forth. But at the time, you had a solar inverter that your solar panels came down to and made it usable power for the home. And then that power was also siphoned off or redirected with different controls to power or charge the battery. And then that they saw early on that they're limiting the flexibility, the design, and the attributes that homeowners and businesses can take advantage of with that product. And so they were working on what's called an AC coupled. AC coupled means that it can attach directly to your main service panel in your home. It can also attach to any solar system. So regardless of what solar inverter you have, is it a central inverter or a microinverters, you could land the solar in the battery system and leverage the charging from the solar system, and as well from the grid, technically speaking. But at that, again, there's policy things involved there. But and it gave us the most flexibility. So basically, it was the Powerwall 2 now can be installed with any solar system, right? So we're kind of brand and type of solar system agnostic. And now Powerwall 3 has the best of both worlds. So Powerwall 3 is AC and DC coupled, meaning if you want to install a new solar system, you can land your solar system into the Powerwall 3 system, and it acts as a solar inverter. It also can be installed on an existing solar system where its inverter now just acts as for the charging and the AC and DC conversion relationship between, is it coming from the house or from solar and charging the battery and then back to the house. So it kind of gives the most flexibility. We've even installed some that customers, so we installed it as a DC coupled system with new solar expansion, and they already had a solar system, so we landed their existing solar system in the battery system as well. So they have both, which is, the bottom line is it has the most flexibility for design, installation, and for customers to be able to leverage the attributes of all the functionality the most. And then the app and the control, the customers have full visibility, and they're able to control how and when they're using the battery system, which is huge.